digital Darwinism is unkind to those who wait.
Lovely.
And with the pace of change, right? Like, I think this is what is knocking a lot of people, including our clients, off their feet right now, is just how rapidly and radically things are changing. And so, again, just being with what is in different contexts as well, because it is influencing certain segments more than others. Evana, we are back and we are into 2025. I don't know where 2024 didn't go, but the landscape of our work continues to change dramatically. And I'm excited to sit down with you today because we're going to look at the whole influence of AI and what the evolution of coaching many coaching groups and teams looks like in the landscape of the era of AI, as many writers are talking about. So, welcome back. What are you thinking about as it relates to this topic today?
Yeah, for me, thanks, Jen. Great to be here as always with you. For me, AI really is a very provocative conversation because even looking at myself, like there was a moment of, oh my God, like what does this mean for my future? What does this mean? And so to me, AI is we really do need to pause and actually look at AI, not only from the like in the room, but also in different ways it can maybe support us. So it's like that scarcity mindset, that fixed mindset versus that growth mindset. Hold on, how can I reframe this? I'm hoping that we're going to be talking about a lot of different things and our listeners will actually go, oh, yeah, you know what? Like, I actually need to make a list of the things that maybe AI can support me versus, oh, I need to be mindful of that. Maybe you need to go and upgrade more training on something so you can be more effective. What are those things, right? What does that look like? So that's what I'm coming in with is a good conversation because you always bring so much goodness and richness and information, what's going on out there too.
I, as always, being a technical and a technology lover, I've been using AI. I've been playing around with AI. I think it actually provides a lot of opportunities for small business owners in terms of being able to automate and to be able to show up in equals with organizations that might be much larger, but it is going to have significant implications on the way we work, the way we live, what we're focusing on, employment. I think a big part of my work as a writer as well is looking at what are those trends and what's coming out. And maybe our listeners have heard of the 2025 World Economic Forum report that was just issued a few weeks ago in early January 2025. But every year, the World Economic Forum does this report looking, and it's called the Future of Jobs Report. And so it's interesting. I'm just going to read from their website, and you can check them out at theweforum.org. They start their report this year with technological change, geoeconomic fragmentation, economic uncertainty, demographic shifts, and the green transition. Individually and in combination are among the major drivers expected to shape and transform the global labor market by 2030. And so what's interesting is that this really looks at what is shifting and what is happening. And it's often, I think, one thing that is the biggest disruptor perhaps for people is that things are changing so dramatically and so rapidly. It's only been 2 years, a little more than 2 years since ChatGPT hit the scene. So think about how that has shifted a lot of things, individual, business-wise, etc. We want to put it out to you as listeners. What is the influence on AI? And you might say, but I'm a coach. Absolutely, you're a coach, and it's changing the context in which our clients are living, operating, working, collaborating. And I'm sure that AI has been coming to your doorstep as well.
Yeah.
I think we can look at this as at a couple levels. Would it be useful, do you think, if we start with the macro context? Maybe me sharing a little bit about some of these statistics that the World Economic Forum has unearthed. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Sure. If I can share just in terms of even my journey with AI and even my experience of how rapid it's changing. Because I was reluctant 2 years ago. I won't lie. I've only been using AI and exploring AI for the last year, but even in this last year, the way I use it. So I used to go and help it, hope and help it would help me with my marketing and my framing. And we had that episode on niche to not niche. I spent a lot of treacherous hours wanting AI to feed me who I am, being fully transparent. And then what I've noticed, the shift, especially as I'm trying to really build out some of my own intellectual property, is now I'm actually using it to help me find resources for me to go explore further. So it's the encyclopedia 2.0, right? 6 months ago, 8 months ago, from what I saw, I wasn't able to use AI to get like up to date, latest news information. I actually went last night and said, "Ooh, I'm curious to know about this World Economic Forum report." I went to AI, give me the summary points. So it really is like a tool that, if we know it, if we have approach to it, at least in my journey, we can actually use it to our advantage, to our participants' advantage, to build our intellectual property. When I know that you're on the other side of it with potentials realized in all of your body of work. And so I won't lie. Oftentimes I'll go and say, "So what does Jennifer Britton say about?" I do, because it's really important that I get the perspective of what's in the marketplace, but also working with you at Potentials Realize that I really support that. So I guess for me, it's really around, before we go into the macros, look at what AI means to you. What is your relationship to technology, let alone artificial intelligence? And where is that supporting you? And where might that be hurting you? And this is a lot of the work that I do in terms of choices. And what are those paralyzers and what are those catalyzers that are going to support you towards your goals? Yes. So where does AI fit in that pendulum, landscape, in that spectrum?
And I would say it, I was going to leave this for later, but I'm sure listeners are like, get on it. I don't want the stats, but we'll get to the stats. But I think there are amazing implications for us as coaches. I think it's going to make our work even more important in an era of AI, because what AI is doing is it's taking away the need for the mundane, the very heavy lifting cognitively. Now that leaves us with space for creativity. It leaves us space for strategic and critical thinking, as we'll see in what the World Economic Forum has come up with. So to me, it actually allows humans to focus on the connection and the piece of creativity. And that's actually being woven into some of our continued evolution of programming. Many of you are well aware of the different creative tools that I've been evolving under the Conversation Sparker brand, from the charms to the dice set. And I'm really excited to be bringing it out this year in quarterly experiential roadshows, because I think people are going to want more experiences. If we can get, I think of this business, if some of the marketing load can be taken off, if some of the graphic design load can be taken off by AI, if some of the accounting and financial systems work can be reduced to something that is not hours and hours of labor, then I can be thinking strategically. I can be working creatively. And that's, to me, what I see as the real benefit of really partnering with AI. And if you've heard me say this in episodes gone by, I am one of the thousands of authors around the world whose bodies of work were fed to AI and used in creating the whole initial web, right? And so with that, again, I might as well work with it rather than try to fight against it.
Yeah.
I think we all have choice points, though, right? There is a continuation of, and I said this 5 years ago, right? 2020, if we go back to 2020, as I was bringing out some of the early days of work, and it was as we were all transitioning into the remote space. We've been a remote virtual business for 20 years now. And there's a great quote that's actually on the back of, I think it's in the back of Effective Virtual Conversations, or one of my books, but it's about digital Darwinism. And the quote goes, and I'm paraphrasing here from Roy Kroc, "Digital Darwinism is unkind to those who wait." Digital Darwinism is unkind to those who wait.
Lovely.
And with the pace of change, right? I think this is what is knocking a lot of people, including our clients, off their feet right now, is just how rapidly and radically things are changing. And so again, just being with what is in different contexts as well, because it is influencing certain segments more than others.
If I may add, I think, but what you're saying there, I think it also opens a doorway for us as coaches, because just like we are in our hat, in our roles, dealing with technology, dealing with AI, so are the people in our conversations in whatever realm, especially if you're working with leaders.
Yeah.
And so our opportunity is again leaning into where AI can support us, but our opportunity through those connection points really is, how can I actually create a space? How can I create a container where people can actually come and be engaged and connect with one another and connect with themselves and connect to like their bigger goals and have that container in that space where AI can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
AI can't do that. AI is probably, as it does for me sometimes when I'm overly dependent, we'll say, on it, is it's actually paralyzing me. It's freezing me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that this is happening to.
Mhm.
So how can we in our conversations, whether it be our touch points online, in our Instagram stories, our reels, what can we do? That to me, that's part of the creative process, right? You are
Yes.
magical with your tools. How can we have those connection points, small sound bites to really help people open up something and activate something inside of them? Because that's something that technology, AI at least, can't do. It can't
Yeah.
replace that.
Absolutely. And again, it's the micro moments, I think, that are becoming so important. It's almost been 10 years since I started writing and sharing about micro moments, which we know are the
Yeah.
elements that really affect change. So, again, as a listener, what are you noticing? Like, where are you on the spectrum? Is AI an important business tool? Is it something that takes a load off so that you can zoom into the higher level thinking task, as we would say in education? Or is it something that is paralyzing your clients? So, what do you notice? And I think again, as we approach some of the backdrop of what reports are saying, and I might actually, for a change, I know some of you are watching us all the time on YouTube. I'm going to share my screen, which is maybe a bit taboo. And actually, you know what's interesting? I'm not sure if it will allow me to change. Yeah, it will allow me to share the screen. So it's almost like a little bit of an educational piece. It is going to come up in just a moment if the system resources are able. So this is from the Future of Jobs report. And I think what's interesting is one of the areas they start with. I'm just diving into their great infographics because I think this gives us a high level of all these other things. Their line of sight, 2025, but their line of sight is, what do you expect for 2030? So 5 years down the road. And the first area that we're going to look at, because some of you are listening, you can't see this, but they go out, they survey different employers, and they're really parsing out what they call the macro trends. So the first area they look at is what's driving organizational transformation by 2030. So not that far off, 5 years down the road. So number one, broadening digital access, 60%. That's interesting. Digital access, right? And again, we're in an era of what does digital access mean? And how are
Yeah.
services delivered? How are things delivered digitally, physically? Right behind it, rising cost of living, higher prices, or inflation. That's been a huge global trend, a huge, as they call it,
Mm.
macro trend. And so, what implications does that have for the world of your clients, but also the world that you are operating within? 47%, no surprise, increased effort and investments to reduce carbon emissions, right? Climate issues. Some would say climate crises issues are
Mhm.
huge. We're coming out
Yeah.
of the LA fires. And again, that may be multiple layers of influence, I would say, as an environmentalist. And the world is changing. I'm just going to go through the top five here. And so the number
Okay.
four is increased focus on labor and social issues. Think about your landscape. I think this is definitely, they've got that one nailed. And then slower
Yeah.
economic growth. So that's interesting. These are some of the macro trends in which we operate. But here's what is interesting. I'm going to zoom on down, not just their trends in AI, robotics, and energy technologies are most likely to drive business transformation. 86% of that transformation is going to be by AI and information processing, whether it's big data, whether it's virtual reality, whether it's augmented reality. That is changing a lot of what we do. Some of
Mm.
it is robotics, maybe not quite as influential on us, but look at this total job growth and loss. It will create 170 million jobs, and 92 million jobs will be displaced. So there is a balancing out, but what are those jobs going to be? I think that is where we're
Yeah.
seeing the shift. Yes, there might be a net gain, but who is doing what?
Jen, if I may add too, is like in that conversation of jobs added, jobs displaced, where are your clients in that? What are they
Absolutely.
dealing with? What are they dealing with in this situation, in this trend? How can you position yourself to be a resource of support through this transition? A lot of the work that I do is around evolution and transition. It's like, are we listening to what our clients, whether it be one-on-ones and you're trying to create a group program or whatever, what are their needs? What are you listening for that? Are you actually positioning yourself in a way that can support them? Even going back to the comments above around social issues, where are you, like, in terms of even your marketing conversations? Are you up? Are you engaged in what's going on socially so you can actually position yourself in a way to be a resource of change, a resource to support this transition? Because the group coaching conversation can happen once people actually see you in who you are and what you stand for. So we have episodes that talk about that, right? We have episodes that talk about the connection. We have episodes that talk about how do you stand out? Check
How
that
do you
out.
stand out? How do you provide the space for the dialogue that needs to happen?
Yeah.
And what is the dialogue? It's probably, if you're in an organizational or community based level, going to be hearing a lot more about this is changing in my life. Like my husband lost their job. I lost my job, like all these different pieces. And it's going to influence like what is changing. And so these are some of the really, again, interesting meta trends. And that's where we want to look at it. So take a look. And if you're listening, you can't look, but I'm going to go to the declining jobs, top largest declining jobs. I'm just going to do the top sort of 5 to 7. Number one, cashiers and ticket clerks, right? Think about the automation of everything, self-checkout, etc. Number two, administrative assistants and executive secretaries. Now that's interesting. That has tremendous influence in an organization because these folks are often the glue that holds things together. So is their role shifting? Is there a new role that gets evolved to keep the social fabric of an organization moving? I know in
Mhm.
organizations that I've worked with over the years, at the surface think, oh, they just deal with phone calls and emails. No, these are the people who actually have the influence to affect change within an organization. Surprise on this, but not really. Number three, building caretakers, cleaners, and housekeepers. I'm sure some of our listeners have seen the robot cleaners. I remember even my own like interesting shock a couple of years ago. It was maybe Boxing Day, and the little
Mhm.
robots were out, the little cleaning robots that go around some of the malls. And the first time you see it, I don't know, I felt, wow, this is the future is here. It makes sense, right? In some ways, can they do a better job than we could do? And can that service be focused on something else? Number four, material recording and stock keeping clerks, right? Think about the advent of all the barcodes and how a lot of that is also automated, even in just in time manufacturing and retail
Mhm.
situations. I know you've worked in retail. You can hear my economics entrepreneurial piece, but I remember 2004 and 5 teaching when I was teaching at the unit, like the post secondary level. And we're looking at case studies of organizations that did things differently. And Canadian
Mm.
Tire here in Canada has always been really well known for its just in time, like retail structure. So
Mm.
they jumped on this sort of digital bandwagon years ago, 20 years ago, where they could make sure that they had just enough stock on the shelves based on needs at the time. And now we
Mm.
even moved to some organizations which have the digital tags, right? You go into a shop and it's all digital, which has very
Yeah.
interesting implications. So I don't know. You can hear me geeking out on all this. This was my former world of work, looking at what is happening at the macro level. And it's not just about what does the data say, it's about what implications does that have for us as individuals, as business owners, as leaders, as communities, and as
Absolutely.
organizations. All of these levels we got to think about. It's not just, oh, that's interesting. No, there will be a ripple effect. And so what is the ripple effect? So what are you geeking out on, Ivana?
So what I'm geeking out on is my favorite supermarket in Italy has various levels of stores, like bigger, like superstores versus this store and their superstore, which is not far from here. It caught me off guard a couple of years ago, but just listening to you, it brought me there. Is there's a scanner. So when I go do my groceries in that store and attached to my shopping cart, like I just go and I get my scanner and I scan it. And then when I get to the checkout, it's a matter of there is one person, but she's just doing a random check and moving me through. And it's actually, if we think about it, it's as much as we think it's about job loss, it's also about my time is actually better used. I don't need to sit in line and wait for people to scan my groceries, right? Because time is our most precious asset. And so when we think about it from that standpoint, and thankfully there's more being added than removed, so there's not that to be worried about. But to me, it's really like, how are we at a coach level, like how are we keeping our skills sharpened as a coach, as a business owner, as a leader, as an internal coach in an organization for that matter, right? What are we doing to help that? And it's also, how are these things going to actually, how can we support our participants in dealing with some of these realities, depending on who you work with, right?
Yeah.
Some people are not technology savvy. And so going to a grocery store, that could be something that is a major source of stress, you haven't come to it yet, but there is something around, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on well-being in organizations. And in terms of the framing of your work and the topics that you're listening for, how can you frame yourself in a way that actually, it's supportive of what these trends are indicating? Doesn't mean you redo everything, but to me, what I'm really hearing from this is the landscape of the trends of what's coming in the next 5 years. But to me, it's like the entrepreneur is like, okay, where can I be of service? Whether it be personally, whether it be where can I be of service, but where's my growth?
Where's the opportunity? Yeah.
Where's the opportunity? Thank you. Where's the opportunity?
And I think, again, like we want to look at this as these are the trends, but what does that mean for education? What does that mean for conversation? What does that mean about how we need to think? And I think about, I've been involved in talent development for many decades now. And I think about the significant shifts we've seen, or I've even seen in my career, right? I think about being a young child, maybe not that young, like it was probably I was in grade 6, grade 7 when computers really came in to the educational system. And I went to computer camp and learned how to change Fahrenheit to Celsius by doing like your basic DOS. I remember my first job in an office, and it must have been 1991, 92. And computers coming in, and there were only 4 computers in the whole office. We still had to fax, but that really changed the way we could work from going from typewriters to computers, word processors. Then I think about the advent of the internet, and I remember that day so well, and thinking, wow, a whole new world has opened up, because I was sitting in a capital city in South America. Right. In those days, your mail took 3 weeks to get somewhere, or you faxed, which cost a lot of money. If the international phone lines were even working. And it has radically changed how we see the world and what skills are needed. And so in the last 20 years, what I've been fascinated by, and not just with my coach hat on, but as an educator, as a consultant, as a writer, is what does this mean? How do we need to be equipping people? What skills? What mindset? So I'm going to quickly go through this because this episode could become a very long one, but growing jobs. And again, we're looking at macro trends, not only with what the influence of AI is, but what is happening around the world. Number one, you might be surprised, farm workers, laborers, and other agricultural workers. We have, in many countries and many regions of the world, right, the land mass is being taken over by cities, by rural and urban development. The actual computing capability needed, the energy needs of AI is immense. Some people might think, oh, it's less. Actually, it's quite immense. And so that's pushing the borders of what is agricultural land and who is going into those roles, even with automation. Light truck or delivery services drivers. Interesting, right? Because what is happening? We're losing a lot of those brick and mortar stores.
Brick and
We're
mortar.
going to Amazon. We're like, let's go buy direct from the bigger warehouses. Software application developers is number 3. Number 4, because
Mm.
cities are growing and communities are growing, building framers, finishers, and related trades workers. We've got to get housing happening. Shop salespersons. Number 6, food processing and related trade workers. 7, car, van, motorcycle drivers. Number 8, nursing professionals.
Sure.
Number 9, food and beverage service workers. And number 10, general and operations managers. And then number 11 is social work and counseling professionals. Where they would put coaches, I'm not sure where we are, but maybe we're in that bucket of number 11. People need the space to be able to reflect and pause and catch their breath. I think that's in many of our world of clients happening right now. I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it as middle-level managers are being let go with very little warning. They've done great work, but they're no longer needed. And I think we are seeing in 2025, the C-level are making the calls they've probably always wanted to, but never dared to. But with trust levels and engagement levels being at almost their lowest ever and being tracked, I just think the radical change in organizations is going to continue, whether we agree with it or not. And that's beyond this podcast, but it's happening a lot.
And if I'm going to add something which is beyond this episode too, but based on what you were just saying in terms of CEOs making decisions and the engagement and the trust, I just see that to be where our programs really can be of service and where we can differentiate ourselves if we can do it in a way that really is communicated effectively. And I think part of what I love with the programming that we offer at Potentials Realize is that we offer doorways, we offer design ideas and approaches to really allow that. Because if you think about it at an individual level, or when anyone has gone through any type of change, right? We all want to be seen, heard, and validated. And that's not always available at the workplace. It's not always available at home. Some people have to look for it out there in an alternative space. And so that to me is something that we can double down on. And AI can't take that from us. But I'm going to say this, it is a but. I don't like to use the word but. We need to know how to do it and do it effectively so we can be of service and have the impact we all want to have.
And I think as I'm scrolling down here, I want to get into exactly what you're saying, because it's really interesting now to go beyond the jobs to what are the skills needed and how does our work as coaches, how do the spaces that we hold relate to this? So we're going to dive down further into this report from the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs report, core skills. I'm going to go into, I think, probably all 10, because I think they all have a level of touch point with us. Number 1, analytical thinking. How are we thinking? With AI, where we started, is not replacing this. In fact, it's allowing us to have more of that analytical time. Number 2, resilience, flexibility, and agility.
Huge.
How many coaches do I talk to every day whose expertise is really resilience? We are needed. We are really going to be needed to hold the space, create the space for more conversations, exploration around these 3 areas. How am I being resilient? How am I navigating change? What am I doing to be fluid and flexible? And how am I engaging in ongoing agility, ongoing learning, iteration, re-experimentation, and movement? It's exciting and it's needed. Yeah. So where are your skills in resilience, flexibility, and agility? What do these mean to you? What do they mean to your clients? Number 3,
and what
leadership.
Are you hearing? If I can say, Jen, if I can add in, what are you hearing in your conversations, and where are you in your growth? Where's the opportunity for you? And if you don't see yourself to be in that skill set, that's okay. But know that's a skill that's needed and we get to choose. But you need to build that muscle or learn new tools and resources or that type of stuff. You really need to be intentional.
Yeah, because some of these might be out of your wheelhouse right now. Like number 3, leadership and social influence. Back to relationships, right? It's not about getting results. Notice it's social influence. It's about relationships and relational work. Number 4 is my favorite, creative thinking. right? And so this is actually why we are spending a lot more time and going to be offering a lot more around helping coaches lean into the creative side and bring more of that creativity to their clients. Because in a world where like the data can be parsed, what does that mean for a leader? The leader can be creative. The leader needs to be more creative. The leader needs to be able to make those jumps across silos and disciplines. So creative thinking is number 4. Number 5, motivation, self-awareness, heart of what we do. Number 6, technological literacy. Number 7, the word that came up out of our 90-day guide last night in our 25 for 25, empathy. Empathy and active listening. Really important. What are you doing to cultivate that? How are you in that area? Number 8, curiosity and lifelong learning. And that is truly who we are at this organization at its heart. We are an educational organization, whether we're coaching, whether we're training, whether we're facilitating, whether we're engaging in mentoring, whether we're doing a blend of all 3, because we can't stop learning, right? Even in coaching, right? I think this is where we may start seeing further interesting iterations within the field, right? Talent management. How do people work together? Who are they? Are they on teams? Are they on self-managing teams? What does talent mean? And then finally, service orientation and customer service. So interesting. What do you think? You've seen this, but maybe not in this way.
I have not seen this. I have not seen it in this way either. To me, it's just, I just see a lot of the core skills as a coach here. And so to me, it's around like really double downing on where are you and where are your opportunities of stretch and growth to keep your saw sharp, right? Like what does that look like for based on who you serve and what you serve in terms of when I think about even myself in terms of the work that I do with personal evolution and transition, resilience, absolutely. That's social influence. I'm just thinking about this even in where I am in Italy. I'm in Italy and like, how can I use my influence of being a North American English native speaker to support this community? Where can I leverage and double down that? Motivation, self-awareness, whether it be in conversations, touch points, or even in the group coaching conversation, empathy and active listening. It's a key part of who we are as coaches. It was week 1 of CTI, right? The 3 layers of listening, curiosity, coaching mindset, right? Are we bringing a coaching mindset? So much here. And then even service orientation. Who are we in service to? Right? What are we really doing this for? Like that why behind the why. Like there's a lot here and more.
There's a huge amount. And this is why I think the whole organization, we're going to be taking this on the road with the experiential roadshow this year. Like very much, these are experiential skills that everyone needs. These are not just for leaders. Everyone needs these skills. And if you look at this, if you are able to see the screen, every one of these skills is related to a different color. There are a couple that are cognitive skills like analytical thinking and creative thinking. But notice 3 of the 10 are under the bucket of self-efficacy. This is what we do at the heart. 2 of them are related to working with others. And 1 is related to management skills, 1 related to technology skills, 3 related to engagement. Engagement is at the heart of what we do. It's at the heart of what I've written and spoken and trained people around for the last 10 plus years, starting not only with group coaching essentials, but really effective virtual conversations. In that book, really, we started diving deeply into how do you really engage people? I think this is another part of what we do differently here at Potentials Realized. A lot of people can be leadership trainers, great coach trainers, but are you really engaging people along not only their own individual styles, but along cultural levels, along the multiple layers? Because engagement means something a little bit different to everyone. And so how are we activating everyone in the context of our conversations? So I think we could continue on. We started off with AI, and I think as we look at how the world of work is changing, there's a great inquiry, many inquiries here, but an inquiry for you to think about, where do you want to be spending your time? What's important and what's important for you and your continued growth? That is a common inquiry we leave these coaching many podcast episodes with, but I think now more than ever, as a coach, what's important for you to be exploring? So what's important for you, Evana, as we go to wrap up this episode?
Something that you just said a few minutes ago really stood out for me, and it's showing up more and more in my conversations around that layer of culture and integrating culture in the context of conversation. And that when I say inclusivity, it's like really having that present and normalizing it, and that there's diversity in that, and that's part of the inclusivity. So I really want to just double down on that. Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
And I'm going to build on that, because I think one of the dangers, one of the traps of over reliance with AI is that the world becomes very flat. The world becomes one color. It's beige. It's not the diverse palette of the world. And that's where, yes, as I've said a couple of times, AI can replace like some of the more heavy lifting cognitive tasks like accounting and things like that might not be in our sweet spot. However, it will allow us to be more human. And human globally is such a beautiful palette, many colors and many different nuances. So yes, I think on a cultural level, it provides that opportunity for us to be more uniquely on our own individual paths, wherever that path is taking us. So we'd love to hear from you, listeners. What's important about this topic? What did you geek out on? What's how might it influence your next learning, your next conversations, even with clients? I think this is an interesting area to help clients look at, because again, information is power. If we can be using some of the data to perhaps foresee or look at what might be, because again, we know that the world changes rapidly. And so I hope I'm not creating a self-fulfilling prophecy here, but who knows what things will look like at 2030. But I think if things continue as is, we're going to see a lot of these trends continue to augment. But again, there could be blips, as we've seen even in the last 5 years. Who knows? But I hope that this episode today has inspired you to think about, what is your role as a coach? What are the areas you might find yourself coaching within? And what's important for you to keep equipping your skill set in? As I've said a couple times during this episode, we're going to continue to, I would say, refine our offerings in the Evolving Workspace with the Reconnecting Workspaces series, our experiential tools, because many of you already have that foundation of group and team coaching. Yet to continue to evolve, how do you evolve into these new areas? What does it mean to coach for creative thinking? What does it mean to coach for resilience? These are, in fact, what we're going to be tackling in our Q1 and Q2 play shops of the Experiential Roadshow. So maybe you'll be joining me in Barbados or online in February 2025. In fact, this episode might have already passed, or stay tuned for the summer series in May. So I'm excited.
Beautiful.
How about you?
Yeah. I'm excited to see what's going to be created on this Experiential Roadshow, and building off that, because a lot of the work that we do is virtual. I want to really just leave the closing thought in terms of even more of the basics, like, where does technology support you in your connections, whether it be AI, but even in your coaching many conversations, right? You've got a whole body of work around that. And we're hardwired for connection. And that's something that AI can't take away from us. Yes. And so knowing that, then I would ask, where or what can you do to support that connection using technology, whether it be through AI with some support for intellectual property and resources, or even just technology, basic technology, Zoom room to get engagement. What are those things? So my encouragement to you is, make an inventory of what you have and make an inventory of what you can maybe double down on with some intentionality. And what is the range? Where's that growth edge for you, knowing what we've just shared here? So that way you can keep growing, you can keep evolving as technology evolves, because it's inevitable.
Yeah. As always, listeners, thanks for joining us. If you want more information, definitely look up the World Economic Forum report. It's a good one, I think, to have to download and maybe even share with your clients, or maybe they're bringing it to your conversations, even better yet. So with that, thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you at our next episode. Bye.
Bye.